you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be, I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love, because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker, you're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette, 'cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Wednesday, September 23rd. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers. Big crowd today, huh? Big crowd today. Good. I'm not shocked, though, considering what we're going to talk about. So forget about the economic news, right? You guys don't want to talk about that. I know you don't. First and foremost, before I get into it, because, look, it doesn't really matter what the polls say. All right? I always trust myself more than I trust the rest. You raised so far, last count, $2,182.43. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, $2,328.51. My fault. Look, guys, keep it up. We're gonna make Florida at this rate. And if we come a little bit shy, I'll eat it. All right. Even Laura's like, look, yeah, she's like, we won't be that shy. We won't be that shy at this rate. That's for sure. But Florida is what it is, right? So, and we'll talk about the ABC Washington Post poll soon, but it is what it is. And you really need mixed mode to reach everybody in Florida. In 2016, we did do the entire thing on a panel, and it did obviously work out. Panels have changed since 2016. There's no doubt about it. And it would take us longer to reach certain people, and we just might as well just call them on the phone. All right. And it's really who I'm talking about here are some particular minorities. All right. Especially minorities that are older, a little older, Black and Hispanics that are a little bit older. We need to reach them. Okay. So Monroe, Collier County, you'll have a difficult time reaching them in modern online panels solely. All right. We'll either call them or we'll text their cell phones. But some of these older people, they actually are a little bit easier in certain states to reach on the phone. That may shock you, but as I've told you before, some modes are better than others. They all have their own benefits. They all have their own drawbacks. Okay. I'm not that surprised about Trump's lead in Florida in the ABC Washington Post poll. What I am surprised is that they reported it. Right? That's a little bit I'm surprised about. In Arizona, the state of Arizona voting to the left of Florida, that really, in modern presidential elections, that has not happened. But should that really shock you guys, considering 2018? Is it that difficult to believe? Okay. In 2016, look, my point is that it really could be a point, guys, where, demographics change, things shift, coalition shift. It never stays the same. The only thing consistent about political coalitions is that they consistently change. So it really shouldn't surprise you that maybe this year, like we talked about yesterday, Iowa, it looks to be voting to the left of Ohio in our Rust Belt poll. And it does look like in Arizona, it's going to vote to the left of Florida potentially, albeit both are probably going to be pretty close. But I wanted to do, this worked out well that these polls came out, because I wanted to do a voter file update on these two states to show you. And now I see, Josh, if you're listening, I see it's starting to dawn on you guys over there at National Journal and elsewhere, that the voter registration trends, which most media pundits are obsessed with, right, Laura? They're obsessed every election with voter registration. They're not going in the direction that the polls are projecting the electorate to go. Florida is more Republican this year than it will be ever in modern memory. Since 1972, partisan tracking of voter registration began in 1972. It has never been this close. It has never been this narrow. And Republicans vote at much higher rates, even though you may not see ballot requests the way you've seen in the past. Things are very different this time. I went over the Rust Belt poll with you guys yesterday. Half of the electorate does not believe in the integrity of the election with mail-in ballots. About half of the electorate. Obviously, that skepticism is overwhelmingly skews Republican. So I don't really think we can look at that data this time around. It's not comparable. It is just not comparable. All right. So Republicans will vote at a higher rate than Democrats in Florida. That is going to happen. In 2018, the country went to the left. The House, very common, by the way. History showed that would happen. History suggested that would happen, barring some event like 9/11. First term incumbent midterms are bad for the incumbent party in the House. They're bad. That happens. It shouldn't surprise anybody. And maybe we shouldn't overread it. We shouldn't overstate its importance, because I can't find 2 election cycles in which the midterm election gave any predictive value to the subsequent presidential election. And neither can Nate Silver, and neither can Larry Sabato, and neither can the rest of the geniuses. It doesn't exist. Again, barring some 9/11 event. So we're left as usual with the fundamentals of election forecasting. In 2018, the House raced to the left. Yet, Republicans unseated a 3-term incumbent senator. A popular one, by the way. His approval rating was 50% in Big Data poll. That was never the issue. The issue was the Democratic Party has moved too far to the left, and Bill Nelson did not distinguish himself as the moderate astronaut hero that he acted like he was for years. And white voters in Monroe, while just barely voting for Nelson, abandoned him. Older senior voters, even Republicans who used to get a decent share of the Republican vote. And they abandoned him for a man who was less popular, but seen as a leader. And overall, since Irma, I've never seen an image get turned around like this, but Rick Scott did wonders for his image during Hurricane Irma. In the governor race, we don't have to go over all the polls again. We had almost, anywhere between 2 and 4 point social bias in that race. Social desirability bias, a shy DeSantis vote, if you want to call it that. I don't know if that has to do with the comment he made, monkeying things up, and then the media talked about, injected race. I don't know. I don't really know. But I do know that Ron DeSantis won that race in an election season that was highly favorable to Democrats. Florida is always close, folks. It's always close. But when you know where every vote is, it becomes much more clear to you. The comparisons that they make are these, what an old college professor used to tell me was an inaccurate historical comparison. I'll never forget him. Beware of these people in this business that cherry pick dates and cherry pick events and cherry pick timelines. This is my baseline because they're doing it to suit their purpose. What do we know? We know that Florida is more Republican in 2020 than it was in 2016. We know that Florida bucked the national trend in 2018 and voted against Democrats. They got a seat that was held by Ileana Rose-Lathanam that she really should not have held. It was a Democrat district at the presidential level for a while. She was uniquely popular, and her retirement was always going to give up that seat. In fact, Salazar fought pretty hard for it. And that seat now, if you believe some of the polls, is in play. I tend to think Donna Shalala has an advantage there, but it's not out of the realm of possibility because of some of the trends we're seeing panic vote. Republicans can't be adding the numbers that they're adding just white people alone in Florida. Okay? It's just not possible. There aren't enough white people. The trend in Florida, and we'll look at the voter file in a second. The trend in Florida from what was once D plus 800,000 now down to D plus under 3. It cannot happen on the back of white voters, on the backs of white voters alone who moved from the north, maybe were ancestral Democratic roots, and then the Democratic Party moved to the left. That is over. That ended in 2016. This is something else. This is not white voters alone. And now I will just break it on people. I mean, it's almost October, Laura. I mean, really, now we can talk about this. There are new constituencies pulling up and parking and setting up camp right next to Cubans, Venezuelans. They're added more than anybody saw coming. They are overwhelmingly Republican. The Miami-Dade poll yesterday, if it came, this is the stuff I'm talking about with Florida, Laura. Your guy comes out, he's like, oh my God, this Miami-Dade poll, Biden's up like 56-38. This is bad for Trump. It was 48-47 a week ago or a month ago or whatever. Miami-Dade was never 48-47. That's number one. Some ridiculous baseline they use as a comparison. That's ludicrous. Gone are the days of George W. Bush losing Miami-Dade by 6.3 percentage points. Those days are over. That Miami-Dade has been gone for years. In truth, Hillary Clinton won 64% of the vote in Miami-Dade. Donald Trump won 34%. That poll is bad news for Joe Biden. He's underperforming Hillary Clinton by 6 points. Donald Trump is overperforming his margin from 2016 by 3 points. That is a net 9-point swing. That roughly translates into 85,000 votes. Which looks, when you realize that, then the ABC Washington Post poll suddenly looks within the realm of possible. Now, I don't know. We're going to pull Florida ourselves. Like I said, you guys are going to make it. If you want to contribute to that, by the way, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, in the YouTube description, paypal.me/People's Pundit. That is, and then when you make your little note, just write for polling, Florida polling. I think it's pretty safe to say we're beyond the point of having to worry about New Hampshire or Maine. Like, I'll do this for nothing. And like I said, if we're just a little bit off, then Big Data Poll will sponsor the rest of it. All right, because you're almost there. I can't believe you guys did it. And honestly, I gotta say this. I really have to, I'm a little bit touched by the trust that many people would put in me to do that. First of all, to give you your hard-earned money, whether you gave $100 or you gave $1. It's hard. It's really, look, it's humbling. Yes, thank you. It's humbling. And, we love you too is the point. All right. But anyway, moving on. I think it may be a little bit rosy that it's a Trump +4. But if Biden is going to underperform in Miami-Dade like that, I'm telling you, Collier is going to be at a level you've never seen before. Because 2018, this was a referendum on Donald Trump in this state. And Ron DeSantis and Rick Scott both embraced him and said, damn right, we support him. Damn right, he's our friend. And they got an R+ electorate. You should expect Florida to at least be R+2. I think the exit polls are a little bit wrong about some of the R+5 estimates. I just don't think so. I think they're wrong about how much independents swing. So the turnout differential is so strong in favor of Republicans, they can actually afford to swing against them with Republicans and still carry it. Same thing is true about Democrats in 2012. But those days are over. They're over. Democrats for Andrew Gillum squeezed out as many votes out of Broward County as you could imagine for a midterm election. What happened? Collier County went above 100% 2016. Lee County got stronger. Bay County, with a hurricane tearing through them, still got 50. That's amazing. Laura, you saw it though. See, for those of you who weren't in Florida, aren't from Florida, you didn't see what we saw. So leading up to the election, it was, oh my God, Democrats are going to look at the early vote. Look at this. They don't know what they're talking about. They should just stop pretending to be experts in Florida. You just stop. You're embarrassing yourselves. Quinnipiac, you're embarrassing yourselves. The rest of you are embarrassing yourselves. It was like an army, right? It was like an army on election day. We couldn't believe our eyes. Collier County was at they were at 100% 2016 turnout by like 11:30 in the afternoon. Okay. I mean, really. So these polls, these D+5s, and so while I don't know, we'll poll it and we'll see. I think maybe it's reasonable. Trump +4 is a little bit rosy, Laura, but a Trump +2 or 3 is not. It's not. It was never going to happen that they were going to get these D+7s, What electorate are you looking at? That is gone. You're living in a fantasy land, Dave Wasserman. You are living in a fantasy land that you wish existed. You are not dealing objectively with the reality, the electorate that does exist. All right. And speaking of which, we shall go now to the voter files. All right. Here's Florida. This is how many unique individuals are actually on a record in Florida. All right. That is minus the dead and change of address flags. All right. I want to show you something. Let's just cast the wide net. All right. When was the last time you saw 12 million votes in Florida, by the way? Anybody? Bueller. They're not there. Okay. But let's just, for the sake of argument, let's just pretend. Okay. Let's give them that. Let's give Dave Wasserman his 180 million electorate. That's going to give him Pinellas County by 20 points. Let's give him that. Okay. Let's run this analysis. And I want to show you something. All right. Here we go. It's spinning. It takes a little bit of time for that to go through. Here we go. All right. Republican 35, Democrat 37. D+2 in the giant universe of 12.8 million voters in Florida. D+2. Now, what do we do in polling all the time? We always go to, oh, and by the way, did you guys see the number? That is down significantly. So the difference there is about 200 and something thousand. All right. Let's go to vote history. All right. And actually, no, I don't want to do a propensity score. Let's do a modeling. Let's model it. Okay. turnout probability model. Let's say for a presidential election, we want no lower than 50%. We want higher than 100%, meaning these voters are 50%. And that's why we phrase that way in polling. Okay. And look, now we're looking like more of a real electorate in Florida, right? 9.5 million votes. That looks more like reality, right? Let's run it again. And I want to show you something. Why is this? I mean, this is machine learning. It's telling you, this is roughly what the electorate will be if we only look at voters that are at least 50% likely to turn out. By the way, the modeling it's machine learning. It's not me. Like, I'm not Nate Silver plugging in what I think may be better for my model, right? Actually, guys, get too excited about the ABC Washington Post poll, because once he gets done unskewing it, it'll be like Biden +2 somehow, right? So all of a sudden, one of his favorite polls will have an R bias of like 8 points, and he'll swing. He's such a fraud. Does anybody know what he did? Is it what? Trump +2 maybe? Yeah, you're right. How much of a house bias did he give the ABC Washington Post poll? Anyway, I'm going to waste enough time on that. Yeah, on that phone. All right. But now we're looking at voters who are just 50% likely, at least, to turn out. Democrats, 37, and let's round up now to the nearest 10, just so you can see what I'm talking about. 37.8. Republicans, 38.4. So basically very close to an R+1 electorate like we saw in 2018. And I know that some exit pollsters will tell you it was like R+5. I don't know. We pour over it all the time to see if the voter analysis and the exit polls make sense. 2016, such a joke. It doesn't make sense at all. It doesn't even add up, right, Laura? It doesn't even add up to 100. And I don't mean because of rounding. Some of them just don't add up to 100 because they don't add up. The exit polls that day came out. The first wave said Florida was 60% white and that Trump was going to lose it by about 4 points. That's what that is what the first wave of unadjusted exit polls, because they adjust them over time, folks. They adjust them throughout the day. The media doesn't tell you that. They shift throughout the day. Just like Maine, one of the other big blunders. Maine was a blunder in 2016, and it was a blunder in the Democratic primary again. Because they're not talking to anybody outside of Bangor and Portland. It's a bunch of graduate students trying to get credit. They're running around trying to find the biggest population centers they can to get it done. All right? So my point being is 13 million people, even if they showed up to vote in Florida, it would still only at the most, be D+2. And in fact, because independents in Florida lean to the right, it probably wouldn't even be. Maybe D+1, probably more like an even electorate at 35, something like that. All right. But in truth, it'll be 37, 38. You know, the point is, I don't know where they're getting this from. Once upon a time, and I can pull up that chart and show you guys. Once upon a time, maybe they could have justified this stuff that they do. And for those who want to know, the ABC Washington Post poll is saying R+5. That's what they're saying. And I'll tell you what, if I turn this down to 30, you'll see that is absolutely possible. Absolutely. And in fact, I mean, look, this is what enthusiasm does. So when people ask you all the time, well, what is the point? And I was talking to a reporter about this on Monday. What does enthusiasm mean? Well, it means Florida's, in the entire totality of the voter file, Florida is D+2 at most. But on election day, it could be R+3. Because Republicans vote at higher rates. And they can actually afford a swing against them. All right. Let's look at this chart. I'm going to pull up a chart. Some of you have probably seen it before. Maybe some of you have not. All right. Come on, chart. It's Florida. It's voter registration over, 10 years. 10 years. Over decades. 4 decades. All right. Since December 1st, 1972. All right. I wonder if the best way, Laura, isn't to just grab a picture. All right, but either way, let me get rid of the voter file real quick and pull this other one up, and I'll bring the voter file back soon. All right, but let's look at Florida here. All right, where are you, Everviz? There you are. Everviz likes when we put out this stuff because they keep retweeting it. You know, Everviz is great, also known as High Charts, powered by High Charts. So when you're trying to if you guys are subscribers to PPD, which you could be by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe, ppdnews.us/subscribe. All right. This is what we use. You'll see those charts for all the economic indicators we do. All right. Here is Florida. All right. Once upon a time in 1972, Democrats had an enormous lead. The advantage was 1,419,605. All right. Just for the record, in 1972, Richard Nixon clobbered George McGovern. Okay, in Florida. I mean, oh, wait, I have Arizona up because we're going to Arizona next. Let me get to Florida again, and I'll give you that margin. In 1972, where'd you go? It's all these bars. Wow. 17 points. Richard Nixon won by 7. It looks like 17 points. I got to tell you guys, this coronavirus lockdown has got to disperse in a lot of these states. God, no, he clobbered George McGovern. It wasn't 17 points, like 40 points. Give me my contacts are killing me here. And thanks for somebody pointing out we should look for, what did they say? What was the place to go to for contacts? In Costco. Lemon Minty. Because there's nothing open. Yeah, Lemon Minty. All right, thanks for that suggestion. Yeah, I knew it. Richard Nixon clobbered George McGovern. 72% of the vote. Okay. And at the time, the advantage for Democrats was 1,419,605. All right, let's fast forward, though. I'm just doing that to show you that because that is the first year that we have partisan tracking, okay? In the year 2000, we all remember that absolute nightmare, which this year could make Bush v. Gore look like a joke. If you want to know why it could be a catastrophe to have a 8-justice court with Roberts. I mean, for Republicans anyway, it would be bad because Roberts is untrustworthy and he hates Donald Trump. I mean, the guy's pretty much, I think, proven himself willing to do anything. In 2000, George W. Bush won Florida by 0.01% or 500 and something votes. And in fact, he won Florida by more than that, but I'm not going to get into it. It was still very, very close. At the time, the Democratic advantage was about 380,000 votes. Fast forward to 2004, and it ticks down a little bit to 367,884 in registration advantage, okay? George W. Bush won the state of Florida, and I can put this up for you guys to look at. It'll probably overlap. Yeah, it did. He won Florida in 2004 by 4 percentage points, okay? And then we know Obama flipped Florida. He was the first Democrat to win Florida in quite a while, Bill Clinton, okay? At the time, when Barack Obama won Florida by 2.4 percentage points, the Democratic advantage was 700,000 registrations. I'm going year by year. I don't mean to bore some of you who know this already, but there are a lot of people who don't. And there are a lot of so-called geniuses out there who really need this to be put in perspective for them because they are grossly overpaid. All right. 700,000 was the advantage for Barack Obama to barely carry Florida. Okay. In 2012, he did hold on, but the advantage did not slip that much. It was still 560,000. And for those of you who don't remember, Mitt Romney lost Florida by less than 70,000 votes. Less than 70,000 votes. Mitt Romney's ultimate problem was not that you got to appeal to the people in the middle, right? You got to appeal to people in the middle. Fox News told their voters that only Mitt Romney could win the election because only Mitt Romney could appeal to people in the middle. Mitt Romney won independents nationally by 7 points, but he lost them in Florida by a smidgen. And because he was Mitt Willard Romney, he didn't get his base out to the polls. Barack Obama did, and that electorate was D plus 5. And by the way, that still only got Barack Obama a less than 1 point, less than 70,000 vote win with 560,000 registration edge. Now, for those of people who are like, oh, well, you know, there's a lot of white people who vote Republican at the presidential level. That's true. And that ended about here when there was 330,000 in 2016. Democrats after the election widened it a little bit again, but then it narrowed again. And as you can see, for the rest of the trend, it continues to get more narrow. You get my gist here, right, guys? And by the way, the bleeding of white people from the Democratic Party ended here. It ended here. That's why Trump cannot get pushed down into the high 20s in Miami-Dade. Because it's not white people. That's not who's doing it. And in fact, for the media, Donald Trump's most loyal voters are not white. The most loyal voter group Donald Trump has is the Cuban community in Miami. We've polled Ohio, we've polled Iowa, we've polled Michigan, we've polled Pennsylvania, we've polled Minnesota, we've polled New Hampshire, on and on and on. We polled Florida and have for many years. Donald Trump never lost the support of the Cuban community, even during the Russia hoax. I'm not going to call it anything else. It's a hoax. Mm-hmm. Even during the Russia hoax, when large percentages of even white working class started to doubt whether or not this guy really was a traitor who colluded with Russia to steal the election. Miami, the Cuban voters never bought that. Probably sounded awful familiar to them, right? They're not easily swayed by media propaganda. That's just true. And I'm sorry to tell people that, but they are the most loyal voters. So it'll be very difficult to push him down into the high 20s in Miami-Dade. It would take a lot more than just like a mind changing a little bit here and there. And in fact, Laura, that Florida poll, that Miami-Dade poll, that is not good news for Joe Biden. That is a move toward Donald Trump since 2016. All right. So, it is what it is. Again, when all of it falls away, and when we do the Florida polling, when all of it falls away, I told you that just some pollsters are just never going to get better. I'm a little bit shocked the ABC Washington Post poll showed this kind of a lead for Trump. Because at 641 likely voters, maybe you'll see the distribution when we do the Florida poll. We'll show you the distribution like we did in the Rust Belt, like this. You will see a map of Florida, and it will show you the distribution like we showed you in the Rust Belt. I don't know how their distribution lays out, but I think it's pretty clear from the partisan participation rates in that poll. They caught on to the enthusiasm gap. Byron York commenting on it this morning said, looking at the post poll, I'm thinking about last night, the Pittsburgh event streaming, comparing it to recent Biden events. The enthusiasm gap is showing up in the polls now, and it's huge for Trump. And I quote tweeted because I told you guys a lot of people were misreading that Rust Belt poll. Biden has an overall lead with the registered voters. It is a blue area. It's amazing that we're even talking about Donald Trump trying to hold on to a state like Wisconsin. Wisconsin voted for Michael Dukakis. Or the idea that Donald Trump almost flipped Minnesota and could in 2020. Minnesota voted for Walter Mondale. These are blue areas. So I think we need to get back on our proper footing. Our proper historical footing is my point. And when you look at the Rust Belt poll, you look at this ABC Washington Post poll, this is the difference that enthusiasm makes. This is why they need a week to gather up their votes. Or more in some cases. What are we up to now, Michigan, Laura? 2 weeks? 2, right? Now you know why. Now you know why. All right. So, all right. I'm going to take a real quick break. All right. And we'll return in a hot minute. What is it? It's 10:36. Don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily on Facebook, guys. All right. I know you guys still using Facebook. Don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, which you all have been doing, obviously. Great job. It's starting to steamroll. It's starting to go. And that's just, again, awesome. Really is awesome. And of course, the best way to support the show is to subscribe to PPD. You may have noticed, and I get a lot of questions about this, you may have noticed post 2016, I pulled us away from the palace intrigue crap. All right. This is a data journalism website. It's overwhelmingly economic and business oriented now, aside from the stuff that we do put up with the elections. But I want to tell people straight off the bat so you understand. We're not going to cover everything Pelosi says, or that's just not who we are and what we do. And after 2016, I wanted to get back to our roots. There has to be a news outlet who could just report the economic numbers without a bias, they are what they are. It's a chart, right? I mean, it's a chart, folks. It's not your opinion. The jobs report says this. The existing home sales index says that. So that's what we do. And of course, if you want to support the show, the best way to do so is subscribe to PPD. ppdnews.us/subscribe. All right. And real quick, I guess I should just try to get us over the finish line. Down in the description, paypal.me/People's Pundit. paypal.me/People's Pundit. Just make sure that you put a little thing on there that says for Florida poll. All right. This way, I know what it's for. Although I don't think we're going to have to. I don't think that's safeguard. Originally, I was telling people to do that in case we didn't make the target, in case we didn't make the mark. And then we would refund it. But obviously, we're going to make it. I mean, I really do think so. All right. Anyway, we'll be back in 30 seconds. Hang tight. Maybe I should do what Robert does and just smoke stogies on the camera. I'm a Gurkha guy, Robert. I never ask him what he's smoking on. And we got one particular watcher that I'll DM with on Twitter. And you guys know I try to DM as much as I can. But if I did all day, it would be like all day on Twitter, and it's not healthy. Laura would kill me. But one of the viewers, we started talking, and he likes a good cigar. I quit smoking, but I like cigars. And I had a battle buddy in the Army who got me stuck on cigars, and he was a snob too, right? So he was a Nova snob, one of the 5 family. Just I mean, this guy was I love him to death, always will. But he was a snob, and I was a loudmouth from New York and New Jersey. And at first, we hated each other, but that's what happens with battle buddies. And it's just like these very unlikely brotherhoods, right? Anyway. It's a beautiful bond. Anyway, so I'll talk to a friend about it, like, you got Monte Cristo number 2. Look, I'm puffing on a Gurkha. I never asked Robert what he's smoking on over there. I got to ask him. He'll go right on what are the odds, and he will, just have this stogie hanging right out of his mouth. It's hilarious. Speaking of which, I should give you guys the idea of what it is. Oh my God, the new logo for What Are the Odds is awesome. Should I show it to them? I don't know. I mean, you were right. The poker chip works way better. And then look. Oh, yeah. Okay, I won't give it away. She doesn't want me to talk. Oh my God, Robert's gonna love it. Wow. Once you find somebody you like who does good work, you stick with them. And I will tell you, if anyone wonders who did the logo for Inside the Numbers, and you guys know because some of you, on the very first episode on Inside the Numbers, I showed you the research. So I do nothing without data behind it, right? So I actually did a survey and market research on podcasts and which logos do you like best? What time slots are people most available for? I mean, this is just who I am. Because Laura was like pushing, do a podcast. Everybody was. And people were asking me to do it. But Laura was, she did. And so I'm like, fine, but I'm going to have some data behind this thing. I'm not going to just go into this willy-nilly, right? So I'm going to have some data behind it. So I did this research. And if you guys started watching Inside the Numbers at the very beginning, I went over the survey, the research, and you picked the logo for Inside the Numbers. But it was the same guy who designed the logo for everything. I mean, big data poll. And once you have somebody that you like who does good work, then you stick with them, and just for the record, just to give him a shout out because he's never let me down. Logos by Nick is the name of the company. He's worked with Johnson and Johnson. And I just got to get, shout outs are good to give people. His name is Nick Sapirto. And he is incredible designer. And he's never failed me. He has never failed me. I'll tell him, I'll say, Nick, I kind of want this. I kind of want that. And he'll and I have no idea what it is I'm looking for, right, Laura? I have no idea. And he'll give me 3, 4, 5 concepts. And then I like usually at one or multiple. And then I give it to the boss. And because she's much more creative than I am, I give it to the boss.
Shoot him this idea, that idea.
And I'll say, yeah. And that's actually what just happened. He ran through a list of stuff and then shot over some concepts. And Laura was like, I like it, but do this. And then we sent it back with that feedback. He just binged me the final product now. And it's dope. Wait till you see it. Did you see it yet? Here, let me show it to you. It's good. It's awesome. You were so right, Laura. You were so right. Let me just read a few names real quick before we move on to Arizona because William M, Catherine T, Michael W, G Turbo, James S, Brandon B, Turtle, another Laura B. I mean, and to all of you. I mean, this is in the last 34 minutes. All of you, really. Thank you. And I'll do my best. I won't let you down. I'll do my best is my point. All right. And we'll see what I come up with. All right.
I'll give them the logo. They want to see it.
They want to see it. All right. Can I show it to them? And this isn't the total final product. But it's going to be close. I don't know how to show it to them in this setting that he does. You know how he does it. He gives you the white. Okay. All right. How about that, guys? When I get it, because it's got to go into a different format. He does it in a vector image, which is not something you can load up here. And then when you say good, he'll send you files of PNGs and JPEGs and PDFs and SVGs. Yeah. I mean, so it's just a raw vector. So we'll tweet it out and we'll say, hey, this is it. And plus, I'll wind up changing all those banner images from What Are the Odds and every one like it is with Inside the Numbers. All right. I'm going to try to convince Robert let's just keep going after the election. Let's just keep going. And if not, we'll figure something out. But I think I could do it. I think I can convince Robert to do it.
Somebody
all right.
wants you to enlarge your chart.
Enlarge the chart. Yeah, that's like when I'm talking, I make it small. But here, I'll give it to them again, big. Bang. All right. Those are Florida voter registration statistics. And I'll just give you a minute. I'll load up Arizona and give you a minute to look at it because I want to look at Arizona next. So again, it is possible, like we see with this ABC Washington Post poll, it is possible that Arizona will vote to the left of Florida. I absolutely believe that. I think that's kind of the long-term trend, right? And if you guys remember, some of those Western states in the past. They used to vote way to the right of Florida. Florida was always really close, So Arizona 7 points last time, 6-7 points. That used to be how Nevada looked. Nevada. That used to be how Nevada looked. That used to be how Colorado looked. And actually, Colorado was always, pretty later on. Well, later on. But even New Mexico was once upon a time, a state that Republicans did very well in. So it really shouldn't surprise you that Arizona is going that way too, because Arizona, nobody did anything about the demographic changes there. That's just the way it is. All right. And Norton W. I got to turn off my ringer though. Nathan W. You're another one that should be recognized. I got to turn it off though because it's been you guys are awesome. It's a good thing. All right. Let's get rid of the screen. All right. You guys got your fill of Florida. I'm going to move on to Arizona now, and I want to make sure you guys got your fill of it. You're all pretty good with it?
Somebody said that this doesn't look good. Am I reading this wrong?
You're reading it wrong. The blue line is Democrats. Look at the bottom of the okay, here, let me go back to it. The blue line is Democrat. The red line is Republican registrations. These are voter registration statistics by party, okay? Other is purple. The total number is in gold. Minor is in a different shade of gold, like a yellow, like the libertarian kind of minor color. And then nones are purple. The reason, by the way, other is the long-term purple. That is the total of minor and nones together, because that only started about 4 years ago, that you could get detailed statistics about minor party registrations. In Florida, there's a slew of them. And that's why, by the way, you'll see how I conduct the Florida Sunshine State or the Sunshine State Battleground poll it'll look like that. If you guys remember that from 2016, the ballot in Florida has third-party candidates. They receive a significant share of the vote historically. So one thing I would say about the ABC Post poll and others, you have to factor that in. And a lot of them were just doing head-to-heads with Gillum and DeSantis in 2018. And that is a major problem with some of their results. All right. They got Scott and Nelson was a head-to-head. But Gillum and DeSantis had 5 other candidates on the ballot. And that has to be demonstrated. You will see that in how I conduct the poll too. But nevertheless, other is the total combination. You have seen others have risen over the years clearly, right? And then you can look, if you want, you can look at nones versus minor. Nones are obviously the overwhelming majority of other. And then minors it is the difference between other and none. All right? Just to let people know that. But Democrats are blue and Republicans are red. You see that line converge over the years. I mean, and I assume he's a Republican, right? Because he said, is it good? I assume he's a Republican. So from a Republican point of view, unless he's a Democrat and he's saying it's not. If you're a Democrat, whoever asked that question, then you're right. It's not good for you. If you're a Republican, it is good for you. All right. But the blue column that's at the bottom, along with these lines, that blue column is the advantage that the Democrats enjoy. Okay. You can see it's huge going back to the 70s and 80s. It's huge. And then it popped up during the era of Obama for a short period of time. And then that column now has gone down again quite a bit. All right. That column at the very bottom for each year is the size of it's meant to illustrate the size of the Democratic advantage. And you could see it's down there with minor parties at this current moment. They're Republican. Okay, so if you're a Republican, this is very good. This is a very good trend. This should show you two things, a couple of things. But one, the turnout differential between Republicans and Democrats in the state of Florida. Republicans almost always turn out at higher rates. And Democratic candidates have gone down in statewide races with a lot bigger registration advantage. Okay? The point is they have like no room for error or turnout differentials at this point. And that's why you're seeing, I mean, that's the point. Ashwin, little salute to Ashwin. I'm just looking at the things coming up. That's why you're seeing the ABC post poll is like R+5. And I showed you the voter file before. It is definitely not out of the realm of possibility. I was actually being nice with that modeling that we did. So, all right, give us at least 50% likely. You go up to 80% likely, like some of these likely voter models in media university polls, they want certainty, like the Detroit Free Press poll that came out the other day. They want certainty. At this point in our polling and our modeling, I am being more generous. I don't want to screen out Democratic voters that may vote this year because of the mailing changes, the voting changes through mail-in ballot. So I'm concerned I may screen out some Democrats that otherwise wouldn't vote. So I'm being generous. But some of these other ones, like the Detroit Free Press, others I just cited, they're like 80 to 100% certainty. Likelihood. If you did that, it's absolutely going to be R+5. I mean, some of these states in Georgia, folks, I mean, it turns into R+9 real fast. All right. Which is another reason why I please stop with the Georgia flipping thing. Okay. So presidential election year, it's very different. All right. And in the end, we're looking at people who vote. All right. So, let's move on to Arizona. I mean, did that answer the questions for everybody? Did that kind of give everybody the, the gist of it? Yeah. And let's see. So I'm going to go, and just to let people know, a big data poll is going to do this. Okay. Just to let people know, PPD is just is the media thing, right? Sponsors the podcast, but this has always been a source of confusion. All right. That's a private entity. All right. It's a totally different thing. Although it is part of the source of the election projection model. All right. In 14 and in 16. After 14, I just got burned by media polling. I got burned. I knew that damn race in North Carolina, Laura. I knew it. The model said Tillis. And I said, I'm never going to let public polling, which clearly has a problem, influence this model like that again.
Well, they were influencing people not coming out. People were being discouraged because of the narrative they were painting. So you were sick and tired of it.
And the rating, though, numbers. And the rating I'm talking about in the model and the rating. Remember in 2014, Tillis was going to win that race. And he didn't lead in a single public poll, except for Harper. But everybody mocked it because Harper's a Republican polling outfit. So it was like Kay Hagan, upwards of 15 points Kay Hagan led. It was crazy. She was the incumbent, but 15 points, ridiculous. She led upwards of 10, 11, 15 routinely. And then in the final stretch, it was some of them were showing closer races. But I mean, one of the finals was a +7. And I think it was Survey USA. And that +7 threw off the model. It threw it off. It was just too much. It was too much because it was outside the damn margin. And when you get outside the margin, it weighs more heavily. I don't want to get into the weeds, but it weighs more heavily. And that was unfortunate. And I let that go, and because I didn't want to put my thumb on the scale. I didn't want to put my thumb on this. I knew it was wrong. And I knew that the model was going to be thrown off by the poll. I knew it. But I didn't want to. It was our debut. And I didn't want to look like I put my thumb on the scale, So I just let it go, even though I knew I was wrong. And then after that, I said, to hell with this. I am never going to let it happen like that again. And public polling, the weight of public polling was reduced. And the fundamentals in our own data collection was weighted more heavily. I mean, it is what. And by the way, that is one of the reasons why we got 2016 right. Because if I didn't, Oh, I would have to go back and look, but if we didn't make those changes, the model was never going to be right in 2016. The polls were so bad, it would have threw it off. Ditto 2018, or would have looked a lot like Nate Silver's forecasting model. And Bill Nelson would be holding his seat, and Joe Donnelly would be holding his seat, and it would have been a toss-up in Missouri, even though it wasn't a toss-up at all. Right? I mean, that's it. I mean, that's the way. That's what happens when you're just like a poll reader. All right. So let's remove this and let's talk about Arizona. Okay. I know we'll get it. We're coming up on that 1 hour. Okay. So let's. That's okay though, because this is just, sometimes this show isn't long enough. I wanted to get into specific counties. If I have to circle back, if I have time, I'm going to circle back and do specific, because I wanted to talk about Collier in Florida and Monroe and Pinellas. So if we have time, we'll circle back. But you know what? We have days until the election. I could just keep hitting these same states. But I want to talk about Maricopa in Arizona, because you can't, with some of these polls, you can't get to these Biden +6s and Biden +8s, and unless you suggest that Maricopa County is going to go to Biden by a similar margin. Okay. And that would be a historical first. All right. I don't know. I mean, I'm being nice, right? It would be a historical first. And in fact, in many of these polls, you will see that Maricopa is like D+3, D+5, D+8. Let's look at the entire state of Arizona. All right. Again, let's cast a very wide net. Arizona is a great state. It's a perfect example of how these mail-in things are like ridiculous to think that it's ridiculous to think that we could not count votes on election day, because because Arizona, 80% of the votes cast in Arizona every damn year come from the mail. Colorado is 100% mail. So this idea like they can't do this, Laura, is like, it's total sham, Anyway, actually, we see a slight uptick to Republicans than what it was before the last reporting period. Okay. So Republicans were basically knocked down to R+2 in Arizona. All right. It's looking like now we're getting back closer to R+3. Arizona was R+4 in 2016. It got knocked down to R+2.5 in 2018, when Sinema just barely eked out the edge. And I've been frantically getting calls from Larry, who I have to call back, and others in Arizona were telling me, you know what, Republicans are making gains. Did you see the gains the Republicans are making? And I did. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show, to do an update about Arizona. We're now back to about R+3, almost 2.75. All right. Now, gender, I mean, we could go through all this. You guys don't really, we don't have to get into the point. The point is the registration trends. Okay. Let's do what we did last time, and I will look specifically at Maricopa. And by the way, in the last reporting period, Maricopa shifted more to the right. So I thought the primary results would be a gut check for some of these pollsters who were putting out these numbers in Maricopa. You really can't get to those numbers unless you think that Democrats are going to outvote Republicans. In a primary, the turnout differential did favor Democrats. Democrats had about a 2-point turnout edge in the primary, and yet they still fell shy of outvoting Republicans in Maricopa. All right. And they felt pretty shy. I mean, significantly. We're not talking about, well, it was about 1,000 vote difference, 2,000. It was not. It was significant. And then this latest round update, which I guess we'll have to do after the hour break. After this latest update, Maricopa got more Republican. Democrats did a good job. They added, let me just take a look and see. I can give you the actual raw numbers. Republicans are about 20. Their registrations outpace Democrats by about 20%. Okay. So for every 1,000 Democrats registered, Republicans registered 1,200. All right. So again, Democrats are doing a good job, but I was arguing and will continue to argue, and I'll show you after the break. We'll go right in specifically to Maricopa County. Republicans weren't flexing their muscles. They didn't for McSally either, which is why she lost that and a bunch of scams. And we've gone over this before. I mean, if you're going to dumpster dive, if you're going to vote for 3 days in blue precincts while Republicans are not, Maricopa, the recorder did something very different. And typically we have a state representative listening. I don't know if she's here today, but she'll tell you, unbelievable. The tricks they had to pull out of their bag of tricks. Unbelievable what they had to do to squeak a 0.2 of a percentage point win. All right. So I just don't, I'm highly, highly skeptical. I think it'll be close, but I'm very skeptical that Joe Biden can carry Arizona. All right. All right. So, all right, look, let's take that real quick break. I got to get my water. I got to get my coffee. All right. Hang tight with the soothing sounds of the Grammy-considered Bowen Band, and we'll be back in about 2 minutes.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends and spread a little love? Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
We can get on a plane and take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to disappear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. Suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Whoa, look at what you guys did. I just checked during the break.
Insane.
Whoa. And I also want to point out, looks like Shauna is here with us. Welcome, Shauna, Representative Shauna. The Arizona Supreme Court told Fontes that he cannot send certain instructions with ballots to cross our errors. But if you go to his Twitter handle, you'll see that he is still trying to do it. It's kind of funny how, is it me or is it, look, everything's like settled law when the court rules in Democrats' favor, right? But it's not settled when they get a ruling that is not favorable to them. Okay. I just find it funny. I mean, it's just true. It has always really been true, right? It's really something. Yeah, I think, and Maine too, because this one went so well, maybe we will try another one. Maybe Robert was right. He said put up a map, and with the states like Rasmussen did. And just to tell you guys, I'm sure they really wouldn't have any problem with me telling you this, but excuse me, just to tell you guys, that was my idea. The public polling project was my idea. I'm like, look, because they asked me, have you ever tried to crowdfund for polls? And I said, no. Andrew, thank you. I said, no, we did subscriptions in 2016. And to let you guys know, we came in the red. I mean, it was ugly in the red. So we just spent the money on it. And then we said, well, we'll see if subscriptions fund them. The tracking poll did us in. It did us dirty. And then wanting to have each individual state, you can't just do the tracking poll nationally and then take subsamples. We called them subsamples, but they really weren't. So that day, if we wanted to know more about Florida, we targeted Florida more, and we would make the sample larger for Florida. It was different. Look, I'll admit it was different. I never purported to say that it was what everyone else was doing. The entire point of doing it was to show you that a public opinion does not swing so dramatically like you see it swing in a lot of these university and media polls. That simply isn't the case. All right? It just isn't. It's artifacts. Those are artifacts of the poll themselves. And that was the entire point. All right. So I never said that, yeah, it moves very gradually. And for the most part, you can see it baked into the cake. All right. So that was the entire point. I never tried or purported to say it would be like they're comparable to their polls. In fact, I was trying not to be like them on purpose because they suck. That was the entire point. But anyway, we nevertheless ended up in the red. So Rasmussen asked me if I ever tried to do a public polling project. And I said, no, well, subscriptions didn't work out for me. You're a subscription tiered kind of thing. Although we didn't really put our polling results behind a paywall. Like you really should. There's some things that I understand why, there's some criticism there. That's tough. I mean, Wall Street Journal is behind a paywall, Wall Street Journal is, so I don't understand why they have a problem with Rasmussen. Right. And with the Epoch Times, I give them absolute credit. When they put up the page about the poll, that is not behind their paywall. So they may do stories about the polling we do for them. That will be behind the paywall. But the polling, the Transparency Initiative checklist, the questionnaires, all of the crosstabs, all of that is publicly available. You may not know where to look for it, but they tweet it out. It's available. And we always do on Big Data Polls Twitter thing. We'll say, here's the questionnaire. Here's the checklist. Here are the crosstabs. Here's how we did the sampling design. That always goes out, right? So I don't see why, though, the Wall Street Journal can do it, Laura, and they don't get the criticism Rasmussen does, right? But anyway, I said, if you're going to do it, what you should do is put up a map, let people click on the state they want to fund. Pick whatever state you think you're going to do. And say you can choose between Pennsylvania, Florida, and Michigan, and let them fund that. And it didn't go that well. So when people brought this idea to me, I told Robert, I was like, I told them about this. That was my idea, and it wasn't really working out. But that's why I'm so shocked that you guys, this is being as successful as it is. Because if we can do, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'll let you guys decide. But if you want to keep doing this or not. But the election's coming up on us. So should we just track Florida, or should we go into other, because we could track it. Yeah, if they raise a certain amount, we could track it and just keep going and make it rolling. And let them know that. Yeah, I mean, we'll take, as usual, we'll take your feedback on that. Or if you want to move into other states like Arizona and Maine, because I do think Maine too is probably gonna go. And I will say this. Let's look at Arizona first, and then just remind me to bring up, Laura, like Josh Kroshauer, however you say it at National Journal. If I'm butchering your name, Josh, I'm sorry. Hotline Josh on Twitter. It's just dawning on them now that these registration trends are not moving in their favor and that they're overwhelmingly working Americans who are registering and outpacing. Working whites are outpacing voters of color enormously, 4 or 5 times the pace in certain states. And we have some updated stats in Pennsylvania. We'll do another show on that. We'll do it tomorrow.
Mhm.
I'm right. Erie County is that big of a margin. I'm right. And the registration trends are bearing that out. All right. So my point is, maybe Trump doesn't win that group as much as he did last time, folks, but there'll be a bigger share of the electorate. And then the question is whether or not the gains he's making among minority voters, which he is doing, he is going to do better among black voters. That's going to happen. And the gains, of course, he's making among Hispanic voters. That will decide this election. All right. All right. So let's take a look at the map. Here's Arizona. I have not put any modeling into effect right now. Let's just look at Arizona. All right. It's getting up the parties. It's rolling the parties. Now, it's a map. It's a database, so bear with it, okay? Looks really blue, of course, because population is scarce in this state, okay? So you have Pima County. Yuma is a very Republican. Mojave, Yavapai. That will go heavily for Donald Trump. Coconino, I always say. Navajo, right? And then, of course, we have Maricopa right here, the prize. All right. Pinal County, Pima, Santa Cruz. Democrats have made a lot of gains in these 3 counties, but Maricopa is the prize. Santa Cruz will be one of their biggest. That was a huge deal. The turnout rate there was high for cinema in 2018. That will be a huge deal for them. In Pima County, of course. Here's the deal, though. And here there are independents that are actually registered independent in Arizona. There are a whole bunch of, see them all. There's Right to Life, Reform, Unknown, Natural Law, Peace and Freedom, Liberal, Green, Libertarian, Other, Independent, and None. None is the biggest non-two-party registration designation in Arizona. Independent is an actual independent party. All right, that's 200 plus roughly for in the map. You could see that sometimes the map doesn't show all of them because that's how records work. That's how dirty voter files can be. All right, but it gives you the gist. Let's add nuns and let's just leave nuns right now. I'm making a point here.
Mhm.
All right, let me get rid of this for a hot minute. Okay, the nuns in Maricopa County. Look at, first of all, they just swamped Democrats. There's a lot of them there. The nuns in Maricopa will not vote like the nuns in Santa Cruz. They will not vote like the nuns in Pima County. And the nuns in Yavapai will vote more to the right than the nuns in Maricopa. There are these like very detailed, granular differences in voting behaviors in groups of voters that a lot of the pundits and pollsters just lump together. All right. And what I mean by that is they'll survey the whole state. They'll see that independents are going, let's say, 55-45 for Biden. I'm just throwing out a number. Don't have a canary. And then they'll extrapolate that throughout the state. And they'll say, well, if Maricopa's D+1 and, each are losing 8 to 10% of their vote share. And then Biden's winning statewide 55-45 with independents, which they, again, I just showed you, designations can be tricky. Then in Maricopa County, he'll take this much of the independent vote. And that's how they're coming up with this stuff. That's not how this works. Maricopa is a certain percentage of the vote. When you weight correctly, those independents, how they're voting specifically in Maricopa, need to be independent variables. And they're not doing that. And they're just blanketing it for the whole state. And that's why we're coming up with these D+1 to D+5s in Maricopa. And then Biden leads in Maricopa by like these ridiculous margins. That's what's happening. And that's why I've been so skeptical to believe some of these polls. I've only seen one person try to parse out, and that's Doug at Gravis. Maybe some of the other ones did. They're just not showing me that. All right. And by the way, Gravis had Trump +4. That was the one and only poll he had led in until the ABC Washington Post poll out today. All right. So I'm just, point being, I'm just totally skeptical of the idea that Maricopa is going to vote to the left of some of these other states. They don't. They typically do not. All right. And let's look specifically at Maricopa County. Let's leave my little map up. Go to my jurisdiction. I'm going to pick a county. We just had brand new updates. Let's just target Maricopa. Okay. It'll do its thing. Executing. Love that. All right. So here you can clearly see, and we've mapped just about every partisan. All right. Because of how metro areas can lay out in scarcely populated areas, when you plot them on a map, you can see big blobs of blues, right? So you see that they're concentrated there. I don't know how well you can see it in the on the video, but if you really look on the map, if I was to zoom in a little bit more, and I don't want to take time with the database updating, but just take my word for this if you can't see it. The red is bleeding out around the blue, which tells you that the red is beneath the blue, but it's also bleeding out around it, which means their registrations extend farther out. All right. All in all, plotted on this map, there are 754,993 known Republican registrations. And I mean, out of that, 722,592 are plotted on the map. Democrats, 661,870 in Maricopa, 627,992 are plotted on the map. All right. For a grand total, if we run the analysis of me. Democrats, less than 31% of the vote. Republicans, slightly over 35% of the vote. Actually, Laura, wasn't this just R+4 flat when we looked at it last month? Maricopa is now almost R+5.
What?
Point being, in the primary, Democrats turned out at a rate that was about 2 points more than Republicans. All right. And yet they still didn't outvote the Republican Party, just in partisan ballots. What I'm saying is Republicans, meaning they, I know sometimes I screw guys up with my pronouns. Republicans did not flex their muscles in this election, in that primary election. And they still had more voters to the polls. And people say, well, of course it's Maricopa County. They got to win on the independents. Don't let them trick you with that. Democrats thought they were going to overtake Republicans. And Sean, I'm sure she can back up what I'm saying here. At this point, Democrats in Arizona and Democrats nationally, and the pundit class, they absolutely believed by this time Democrats would have overtaken Republicans in Maricopa County. And like I said, I'm sure Shauna can back me up on this. Mm-hmm. She lives there. She knows what I'm talking about. The idea that Republicans outvoted Democrats in that primary was a gut punch to them. They did not expect that to happen. So with them pretending like, oh, yeah, and I did see the Cindy McCain thing, there is going to be a group of voters who she holds certain weight with. And I'm just talking about that group of, is this one you're asking me?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll move on to Arizona next. We'll let them decide. All right. She just asked me one of your questions, which is, are we going to pull Arizona? We'll see. Yeah, I mean, really, the point is, I think that Trump +1 already reflects why it's closer. And it's like, why it's closer than it was in 2016. There are a group of voters. However, now with the Supreme Court decision weighing on the minds of some of these, voters who may otherwise think, maybe I'll go for Biden. Maybe I'll go for Mark Kelly. I don't know how many of those Cindy McCain can keep from rethinking their decision. There was already a bit of voter remorse from 2018. There was. It was low teens, but it was low teens of Republican women that decided either not to vote or to vote for Martha McSally's opponent, Kirsten Sinema. They had the luxury back then. They had the luxury of thinking, well, I don't particularly like Trump. He insulted John McCain. I mean, there's some people that they do care about that stuff. But I think now it really, when you have your back against the wall and it's like all on the line, partisan voting indexes strengthen. They tend to revert to their PVIs. I would argue that there is really no election where Democrats can point to when the court was a big issue and it helped them. Arizona, I think probably McSally would have lost it by a little bit more if it wasn't for the Kavanaugh debacle and the caravans. We saw in our polling, we saw the immigration moved up to like 6-8% when it was nil, unbelievably, because those caravans started to come and people started to care about it again. But ultimately, healthcare was a really big issue. Some Republican women did believe the Mueller probe nonsense. They did. And they don't now, by the way. They don't now is a big deal. So, I mean, the bottom line is, when it's all on the line, things tend to matter differently. In 2004, George Bush was in deep trouble. He didn't get a Supreme Court pick in his first term. The war in Iraq was tough. The economy was not, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. There were a lot of value voter issues up for grabs and up. Terrorism, national security was was the top issue, but then there was a lot of value voter things, gay marriage, drug initiatives. And George W. Bush told people in Iowa, he told people in states he was having a hard time in Ohio, evangelicals that have been softening. He told them, I didn't get a court pick in my first term. I could get 2 in my second term. You've got it. Maybe you're not happy with the war in Iraq. Maybe you think the economy could be doing better, but think about your values and think about what it means for the court. Give me another term. And that is, folks, how George W. Bush held on by less than 0.2 of a percentage point in Iowa, 10,000 votes. It was a great argument. And Karl Rove was very smart when it came to that. It was. And he was a uniquely qualified person to make it because he had that, evangelical story. So, yeah, another 80% of that. The SCOTUS pick. Yeah, they are. Yeah. Absolutely. And Bush and that worked for him. It gave him a little bit more of the vote in Ohio. It gave him that teeny little margin in Iowa that got Bush reelected. That it wasn't that. And by the way, Trump won more evangelicals than Bush, but at the time, Bush got an historic turnout for them. That at the time was historic. Trump overdid that, of course. So, anything down now is going to be overplayed by the media. But the bottom line is that worked for him. In 2008, the issue really wasn't about the court. What happened really, the economy collapsed, the war was doing bad. So Americans focused on that outside of the court, which John McCain really did not make a big deal. Barack Obama ended up getting 2 Supreme Court picks because of it. And then in 2012, Mitt Romney really couldn't. I mean, he was the worst person to put against Barack Obama. Again, not an issue. The court, really not an issue. In 2016, it was a huge issue. Donald Trump won those voters by double digits, and he juiced out turnout among evangelicals, got 80%. Unheard of. It was because evangelicals, even though they may not personally like his attitude, like his personality, it was all on the line. Merrick Garland's nomination was weighing over it all. Antonin Scalia had died. Did we want to fill Scalia's conservative seat with Hillary Clinton's pick? Or if she was going to keep, she had referenced she would keep Merrick Garland, but maybe, you know. So the bottom line is it overwhelmingly helped Donald Trump. There's no argument there. In 2018, and you've heard me say this before, Republicans lost a slightly higher than average number of seats in the U.S. House for a first-term incumbent midterm party. A first-term midterm for the incumbent party. But they won an above-average number of net seats in the U.S. Senate for such. You have to go back to JFK to see a first-term incumbent party do that well in their first midterm in the Senate. I would argue Kavanaugh had a huge role in that. We were polling for Kramer in Dakota. There was a feasible chance that Heidi Heitkamp could have hung on by 1 or 2 points before the Kavanaugh debacle. Very rarely do polls shift the way they do in the media. Very rarely. But we actually did see a huge swing when we were polling that race. It went from potentially a tie, essentially a statistical tie, to Kramer plus 14 in like 2 weeks. And in the end, it pulled back. So there was an initial regurgitation reaction. And then it pulled back to like, what was it, Kramer 11 or something? Something like that. And then that's roughly what he won it by, right? 9 or 10 points. And I would argue that that helped all over. And Donald Trump taking to the campaign trail to argue about what happened to Kavanaugh saved the Senate for the Republican Party. Absolutely. There is no doubt. So going back, what now, 20 years, I cannot find an election where the argument over the court benefited the Democratic Party. I just can't. And you can't find one either. It's a very simple, if you poll Americans, and you know what? Let's add that to the Florida poll. Let's add the Supreme Court. What am I thinking? You know, something along the lines of, which do you believe is the appropriate role, or which role do you believe is, you know, a Supreme Court justice should take? Should they interpret the Constitution as it is written? Or as they, you know, and we'll ask. When you ask it like that, it's overwhelming. Americans believe that the job of the U.S. Supreme Court and all judicial appointments, by the way, is to simply interpret the Constitution and the laws of the country as it is written, as they are written. Not to write their own laws or interpret them as they wish it was written. And it's such an easy argument to make because it can apply to so many elements and aspects of your life. And that's why it's much easier for the Republican Party to make that argument. I just want to jump to Joel's question real quick. That's a great question, Joel. I would tell Trump, you know, I would say that, like I said, I'm not surprised he's ahead in Florida. I do think he's ahead in Florida. And you guys know this. Donald Trump will be extremely difficult to beat in Florida. But I think that potentially it could be a +4, Joel, to dissuade him from picking Lagoa. I do. I could see them doing it, just like they boosted his approval ratings during the lockdown and before the lockdown to get him to do that because they know Donald Trump loves flattery. So I absolutely, the cynic in me now that, you know, Laura loves, because she's been saying, come along to the dark side, cynic. They made me the cynic, though. You didn't. And you know that. You just were waiting for, you knew it would happen. They made me the cynic.
I just waited for the words, you're right, Laura.
You're right, Laura. You were right, Laura. There you go. They made me the cynic. And I absolutely do not believe that they were being solely honest with his approval numbers during that. All right. So that's Maricopa. It's already time for my 30-second. Yeah, who doesn't love flattery? I know everybody loves flattery, and Donald Trump has a very striking similarity to Richard Nixon, despite Bob Woodward and Bernstein, the burned out hacks, has-beens, despite their constant comparisons to him. There is one that's valid, and it's none of what it is nothing that they say it is. His comparison to Richard Nixon is that he wants them to like him. So Bob Woodward, people ask me all the time, why did he talk to Bob Woodward? I would not have done that either. Lindsey Graham suggested and encouraged him to talk to Bob Woodward. Why? Because every other president does? To hell with him. Who gives a damn every other president gave Bob Woodward a book? It's not your job to make sure Bob Woodward sells books. The guy is a total hack and has been since Deep Throat, which is an appropriate name for how he got that story.
Oh, man.
Damn right.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I said it. All right. He is not there to be your friend. And Donald Trump would think, and he did think, and people, he knows that he thought he could just talk. If he could just talk to him and win him over, if he could just talk to him like a person, like man to man, then he could win him over. Why? Because he comes from business. He comes from regular America. Even though, yes, of course, he rose to the ranks of elitists. But that is how it works. You show people your human side. You show people who you are as a man, in this case, or as a person, and if you're a woman. And you can win people over. That is not how it is in Washington, D.C. It's unique in that everything is through the lens of power and politics. It doesn't matter how nice you are to them, how you show them. They don't care if you're a good man. They don't care. I hate to say this, man, because it's like, Americans used to remember this and just know this instinctively. DC is filled with a bunch of dirty people, dude. It's not a good place with good people. The people you see on TV are not good people. They're horrible people, most of them. I mean, one day, Laura, I should just blow up so many of these stories. You remember the one? You guys all know him too. Remember kind of came on, I'm trying to talk to Laura on the phone. Had to go to DC. At a restaurant. This idiot is drunk. This TV dude, you guys know who he is. You remember? Trying to talk to Laura and give her a stuff like, hey, how are the kids? Just stopped at the restaurant to get dinner. This idiot, drunk, porno. I mean, this is the kind. These are the people, bumping into my chair. One of those really annoying drunks, and you guys all know who he is. He's on TV. He's a self-righteous piece of. But that's what he really is. And my point is, it didn't matter. And Donald Trump shares that with Richard Nixon, where they come from a different part of America. And Richard Nixon was from humble origins, far more humble than Donald Trump. But they both come from where you pull up your bootstraps, you show people what kind of a man you are, what kind of character you are, and they'll be more fair to you. It's not like that there. It is not like that. It is in the rest of most of the country, and certainly in middle America, but it is not in DC. And for that matter, it's not that way in most of these coastal urban areas. But
they also believe in double standards.
Yeah, right. Well, of course.
You
Yeah.
have to be good, but
I don't. Yes, right. Yeah, that's a great. Laura's so true. It's like they think that they are all right holding you to this standard that they don't hold themselves to. So I mean, really, it's something else. But DC is unique like that. You can find that a lot of places, but DC is unique in that, right? That these are not good people. Nothing you can do will win them over because they've already determined that you're their meal ticket, you're their story, You're the enemy. In fact, you are the enemy. Donald Trump is their enemy. They view him as their enemy. He is a threat to their entire buddy system.
Just look at the names they call him. Hitler.
Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, right. You can't come back from that stuff.
You know, there's no meeting in the middle.
Right.
And Maricopa, France.
That's so true. It's so true. But he thinks that, you know, it's kind of funny. In some ways, Donald Trump is looking at the best of people, you know, or trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. He did it with Paul Ryan. He did it with Hillary Clinton. Laura, you saw it. You know, he extended. He tried to do what the country is supposed to do when he won during inauguration. He reached out his hand. Time to unite.
She bit it.
And she bit it. He keeps making these mistakes, you know, so like a Bob Woodward, you know, and this is just who these people are, you know. All right. So anyway, 30-second break. Let's take that 30-second water break. I'm going to pull a Rubio. And then we'll wrap up. I get a lot of people asking me about questions. I'll glance at them. You know, Laura always throws me a few. I'll glance at them. Let's just try to keep it relevant. But I did want to get through a couple other things in Florida when we came back. If we had time to circle back, I wanted to show you Collier and Monroe and Pinellas, just how things have changed, right? And it's important because they're still looking at Hillsborough like a bunch of idiots. They finally caught on to the impact that Pinellas has had on the changing electorate in Florida, but now they're even behind that now, right? So Collier can offset Monroe if it doesn't go too much, and Pinellas, especially if you have some of these gains in Lee that we're seeing. I mean, they're totally lost in the sauce. They're 4 cycles behind, or they were 4 cycles behind. And now they're 2 cycles behind trying to catch up. It's sad. But yeah, let's take that 30-second break. Don't forget to like PPD on YouTube. On Facebook. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Hit that notification bell. Let you know when we're going to go live. Best way to support the show, of course, is to be a subscriber, which you can do by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. I'll give you guys another quick update, too, on the Florida poll, how much we've raised so far. If you guys want to give to it and you're just coming and tuning in now, it is paypal.me/People's Pundit. PayPal.me/People's Pundit. And to all of you who have done that in the last, hour and a half since we've been on the show, thank you. We love you for it. We'll give you a shout out if we haven't yet. As always, make sure you do write that in the note. This is for the Florida poll, or this is for polling. All right. And the original idea was that if we didn't hit the target, we'd give it back, but we are going to hit the target. So I do believe we are. And if we fall a little shy of it, I'll make it up. All right. Just because I am overwhelmed with how much faith and trust, you guys put in us. And we'll do our best. We can promise you that. We will do our best, and we will be as honest and transparent about it we will be the most transparent. Nobody is this transparent and this honest. I'm sad. I would like to see it. Susquehanna polling called out Franklin and Marshall. Let me recap that, though, after the break. We'll talk about that. I think I'm starting to have an impact. I think that, like Trump has taught the Republicans how to fight, I think I'm teaching some of these other pollsters how to fight. All right. 30 seconds, folks. All the best. Hang tight. All right, we're back to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Follow me on Twitter at Peoples_Pundit. This show is sponsored by PPD News. You can be a subscriber by going to ppdnews.us/subscribe. All right, I do want to talk about that Susquehanna polling. That was just something, man. Coming out and slamming Penn Live for reporting Franklin and Marshall as an expert in polling. I mean, they are the most abysmal pollster in Florida, probably by far. I mean, Robert and I have talked about this before. They're among the worst pollsters. They are horrible. And at this point, kudos to Susquehanna for calling them out. Susquehanna gets hired by both right and left groups. I can confirm. I know that is true. They are not some hack polling outfit. I think, like I said, we do what we do in the hope that we can spark this kind of a conversation. I know so many pollsters, it's dominated by the left, it is, but I know so many pollsters who don't like Nate Silver and know he's a total fraud, but they're afraid of his pollster scorecard. You talk about him, you criticize him, you'll end up like me. You'll end up like Trafalgar. You'll end up like Rasmussen, right? And that has got to stop. If you all grew a pair, then he wouldn't be able to do it. You understand? It's like oppressed people. You rise up, the tiny little regime cannot beat it back. All right. And I think I'm starting finally to teach people how to fight on this front. Okay. Susquehanna said and called for Franklin and Marshall to be censured by APOR to be what's the word? Punished, as a matter of credibility for having such horrible election results. There has to be, Nate Silver is not the authority on polling. He doesn't even know how to poll, but APOR could be. Why are we and Spencer at Emerson the only ones releasing the APOR Transparency Initiative checklist? Everybody should be releasing the checklist. It takes me 20 minutes to fill out. I've done so many sampling error equations in my day. It doesn't exactly take long to figure it out. I mean, that's the hardest math that they ask you to do on that checklist. It doesn't take a lot. They just want you to know, where did you get your samples from? Where did you get how did you design the survey? What was your target population? I mean, all stuff you should always report anyway. It's not that far beyond the standard of disclosure, the old school tier 1, level 1 standard of disclosures. And Susquehanna called on APOR to censure them, basically. All right. And not just them, but a Hillary plus 11 the day before Donald Trump won the state by 1 point is not defensible. It's indefensible. It's not defendable. It happens that you get things wrong. No pollster, including myself or anyone else, is going to be right all the time. But it has to be within reason, folks. And it can't be that you're wrong one way all the damn time. It just isn't statistically possible. Mistakes have to occur in a seemingly random pattern. If they're continuously to the benefit of one side, it's mathematically certain that is intentional. Or at the very least, you're wrong, your methods, whatever, to project the electorate, they favor one side over the other. And, you should have been, at this point, you should have gone through an autopsy and you should have, what did we do wrong? That's why I've been so tough on Quinnipiac, like Susquehanna has been tough on Franklin and Marshall. That's their state. I have been particularly hard on Quinnipiac because in Florida, they are a joke poll. For those who, unbelievably listen to the media, they are not credible in Florida politics. And after you blew one important race after another, for me, the final straw was 2018. They got nothing right in 2016. And in 2018, again, they got nothing right. And it comes to a point where you have got to give me an excuse that makes a little bit of sense to me. You have now had ample time to do an autopsy and to say, you know what, we were wrong. We were outside the sampling era. These 3 election cycles in a row, all of time favoring one candidate over the other, with the one exception, by the way, of Quinnipiac, with Texas. Ted Cruz in Texas, they overestimated. That is the one example. In 2014, they were too pro-Republican, while Paul Ryan and company were giving them an audience on Capitol Hill to hawk their polls to them. Right? What the hell is a supposedly nonpartisan university polling outfit, the director of? What the hell business does he have on Capitol Hill getting flattered and dined by a party. And then when that party doesn't give you any attention anymore, those polls all of a sudden dramatically shift to the other direction. That smells like, to me, that is not acceptable. And there is zero chance you would ever find me answering the call of Kevin McCarthy if he did. That is just not going to happen. And I'm a private pollster, but that is not going to happen. You could hire the firm, but I am not going up there to hawk and be wined and dined and then release those polls on PPD or anywhere else, pretending like they're supposed to be nonpartisan. University pollsters, they need to be held to a higher standard. All right? They need to be held to a higher standard. All right, so with that in mind, let's quickly look at, I just wanted to bring that up because good for them is my point. Good for them. This is just out of control. And you shouldn't be afraid, guys. You shouldn't be afraid. You know who you are. You know you know about our conversations. You know I'm talking about you. You should not be afraid to call out a glorified poll reader who pretends to be an authority in an industry he knows nothing about. You should not be afraid to call out media and university polls that are repeatedly outside the sampling errors and just indefensible. If we don't police ourselves and we continuously show these wildly inaccurate results and misses that are just so transparently bogus, if we don't police ourselves, we're just damaging our own industry. Do you love it or do you not? Do you think it still serves a purpose and provides a value to the American public, or do you not? Because your silence is a disservice, even if you're not doing what they're doing. Your silence is still a disservice. All right, let's refresh. Let's take a look again at, I have to refresh it to pull it up, and then we'll go to counties. All right, remember D+2 on a good day, Florida. Let's look at some of these numbers in, let's look at Collier. Let's do that. Collier County, and there's a reason why. All right, let's look at Collier, and then we'll go to Pinellas and Hillsborough, because Hillsborough is like their last vestige, right? 210 voters in Collier, and 210, overall records, right? Half of the electorate is Republican, and yet 26% none, 24.5% Democrat, and yet Republicans now are consistently hitting 7 and 10 in this county. All right, it's a big chunk that can help offset losses in like Monroe. So if you net shift 15,000 votes in Monroe, 20,000 votes, like we did see in 2018 with Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis, I'm not surprised by that. Bill Nelson, they had a base of support there. They liked him. They did. That is the area of the state where you did see pretty significant crossover vote for Bill Nelson in the past, like when he beat Connie Mack. All right. That's the kind of area where he ran it up. Lately, Collier has been just completely gangbuster for Republicans. And there's a big chunk there. You pull 70% of those votes, folks. That's a lot of votes. That is a lot of votes. And actually, let me just look at something. 2018. Sorry, I got to write what I got to write here. I'm just pulling up the actual county. Want to see the actual county. They didn't go county by county on this crap. Give me 2 seconds. Give me a hot minute, and we'll look it up. I just hate this one map because for some reason when I click on it, it doesn't, it gives me this horrible, if I actually click on it. So 64.5%, even though Ron DeSantis did edge out barely in Monroe. It was about a 600 vote margin in Monroe, where Rick Scott underperformed it. And by the way, on election night, Monroe always looks like it's going to be blue. All right. It takes time in Florida, how the results are reported. It is always initially favorable to Democrats. And then you will get this large share that'll come in from Miami-Dade and from Orange County and from Broward County and Palm Beach. And it'll look like it's almost insurmountable. And then you get the net 50,000 votes out of Collier County. And then you get the huge margins in Lee County, which is net 65,000 votes, 60,000. I mean, we're talking about huge chunks in these counties. Polk County, 30,000 votes net. Later, even the Panhandle will come in, and you'll look at places like, where smaller ones like Calhoun, and then bigger ones like Bay. Republicans need to net about 30,000 out of Bay County, and Ron DeSantis actually got a little bit less than that. It was like 28, 29, but there was a hurricane, in case you guys don't remember. But in Pinellas, okay, for instance, Pinellas County is to the west of Hillsborough. Andrew Gillum actually carried Pinellas and netted 13,000 votes out of there. It looked a lot like when Barack Obama could hold on. All right. Hillsborough, by the way, is not a bellwether anymore. It usually goes for Democrats by 10 points, roughly 9-10 points. You'll always get these like nifty little polls. They'll come out and they'll say it's a Hillsborough only poll. Democrats are up by 15. They're expanding their margin in Hillsborough. And then it ends up a little bit tighter. It looks big as it's being reported on election day. And then things tend to work out and tighten up. Tend to work themselves out and tighten up. Alachua County is getting bluer, for instance. All right. So that's a net 30,000 votes for Democrats. That is all normal. Duval, Trump did very good in Duval. He did. It was about 4 points in Andrew Gillum and DeSantis' race. Gillum carried it by about 4 points, which in Duval, because it is big, is like a net 16,000 votes almost. All right. There's been a lot of Politico stories and other stories about their internal polling in the Biden campaign and Democrats, and Biden is up huge in Duval. That is possible, but I heard the same rumblings in 2018. It just didn't get the headlines. I'm talking about from political strategists. Duval is going to be 15 points this year. Gillum's up big in Duval. We've never seen margins like this before. And in the end, it just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. All right. It tightens. It's hard to poll. So when you look at a state like, let's look at Duval. All right. Actually, let's look at Pinellas first, and then I'll explain why. Because if we don't get, I see the time's running out on me. Whoops, that's district. I see the time's running out on me. So people, look at these polls. They're smaller sample sizes. They're smaller populations, right? So there's a larger margin. There's a larger sampling error. And so you can, see how somebody puts out this internal Democratic poll. Duval County is 10 points this time, 15 points this time. And the sampling error is, 5.6%, 5.5%. It could be that their poll said that. And yet on election day, it'll still be maybe 5 to 8 points. All right. I mean, we're smaller samples, bigger misses. Okay. So let's run this now that we got, this is Pinellas alone. And I'm going to show you, in 2018, about 430,000 voters voted in Pinellas County. Okay. It is dead even almost dead even. So Democrats have a little edge. It looks a lot like the entire voter file, right? 35% Republican, 36% Democrat, D+1. This is why Pinellas stands to be such a bigger bellwether. But we're still only talking about a total of 636,000 and change records. And when we're actually talking about how many people went out and voted, it was more like 430,000. The sampling error could be huge. So why am I bringing this up? The Dave Wasserman tweet. And then just by saying what I said, how I quote tweeted him and threw a little seed of doubt in his brain, he had to go back and write the whole damn thing over. Well, I guess it is possible Trump could lose Pinellas and still carry the state. Yes, of course it is. But we knew that already. Because we've seen Donald Trump won Pinellas was a feat. Was a feat. It's not necessarily the norm. Ron DeSantis lost Pinellas by 3 points, and he still won the state. He barely eked out Monroe, and he still won the state. Rick Scott did worse in both areas and still won the state. It is possible. We know it is possible. Point being, they need to catch up. They need to really catch up. Hillsborough County was a 10-point edge. Let me show real quick. Last one. Run out of time, unfortunately. We do have time, though, and I will keep, time, throughout the election cycle. I will keep coming back and nailing this over and over. There's always more we could talk about. There's always more that we could look at, right? Hillsborough used to be about even once upon a time. It was. It's not anymore. It's a particularly big county, too. In 2018, about 510,000 votes came out of Hillsborough. Okay? It's 843, et cetera, right? Look at the Democrat edge in Hillsborough. So why are we surprised? That would seem to suggest that independents and third parties broke about even in Hillsborough, which means Ron DeSantis and Rick Scott did better among Puerto Ricans than the polls ever thought, number one, and then the exit polls even said projected. Because that is an area where there are a lot. And that's why I have said, DeSantis and Republicans in general are doing better in the I-4 corridor among Hispanics. They are. And that bleeds over. It does. All right. So, 11:57. I could talk about Florida forever. But when we do this, we'll split Florida essentially into 4 or 5 states, right? So you'll have the northwestern panhandle. You'll have the northeastern region of Florida where Jacksonville, Duval, right? And then you'll have the central Florida that includes Alachua because it is central. We'll cut it off basically right there. The population center is what I'm concerned about, right? And then central Florida, which will include Marion County, Ocala, and then we'll do southwestern, southeastern. All right? And that's how we break up Florida. And we absolutely will get Latino detail questions because in this southern, you guys didn't see what I was doing. I'm looking at another map, trying to give it to you. But the southeastern part of the state will look very differently among the Hispanic vote than the central part of the state, than central Florida will. All right. So you have to do this. We're going to shoot for with the way you guys are raising, the money you guys are raising, I'll shoot for 1,000. The minimum sample size at Big Data Poll for Florida is 800. We will shoot for 1,000 so we can oversample Hispanics a little bit. All right. And just to give you a quick update before we get out of here, you have, by the end of the show, you already raised a lot more. You have raised for a grand total of, put the wrong damn number in. You've raised $3,150.32. All right. So getting very close. Polling is expensive, especially if you want to do mixed mode polling. So I would really be concerned about the ability to reach some seniors that are in Monroe by online panel. Panels are now starting to skew a little bit to the left. You got to target. You got to make sure your distribution is good. I think we're going to have to call them on the phone. And then, but we will. So we'll do mixed mode. And then we'll parse that out, by the way. And I'll show you the difference between seniors in on the online panel and seniors on the phone. That would be interesting to take a look at because we typically do find that interesting. But either way, it is check out my Twitter feed. Depending on where you are in the country, I'll be on in talk radio in Janesville, Wisconsin. I'll be on talk radio in the DC area. I'm going on talk radio 1 today with Alan. I'll pull it up. I've been tweeting it out, and every time it updates, I'll retweet it again because it does look like here. I'm going to retweet it now. So Wednesday today at 1:00 Eastern time, I'll be on with Alan Flowers, Talk One Radio. That's syndicated across the country. Scott Thompson, The Morning Mess in Janesville, Wisconsin, and Freeport, Illinois. Duke Brooks, The Talk of Delmarva, which is WGMD. That's Maryland, Delaware, Virginia. So I'll keep retweeting it out. We'll be talking about the Rust Belt poll and all of the polling. We'll even be talking about what we're doing here on the show. All right. So again, folks, don't forget, if you want to contribute to it, it's paypal.me/People's Pundit. PayPal.me/People's Pundit. Robert G, The Temple, Joel W, Mary B, Andrew D, you guys, all of you, if I missed anybody, I'm sorry, sorry it rolls in as it does, but all of you, thanks, of course. And like I said, I will do the best I can. All right. Don't forget to like the page, People's Pundit Daily on Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. Hit that notification bell, and it will let you know when we're going live. Best way to support the show, of course, Inside the Numbers is sponsored by PPD News. You could go to ppdnews.us/subscribe. ppdnews.us/subscribe. All right. So all the best, folks, until tomorrow, which I will give you an update on how things are going. All right. So until tomorrow, thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Follow me right there at People's_Pundit on Twitter. And have a good, safe rest of the day. We love you all. Talk to you 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow.
How much you wanna bet that I can get you back inside your head before the summer ends, and spread a little love. Just for a little fun, I'll make you come back to me before the rise of every sun. Baby, it's meant to be. I know you got a man, but he don't understand. You're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah. There's rhythm in our love, it's impressive, excessive. You can't make this stuff up. My chest beats, it's restless, wakes the neighbors up above. Yeah, baby, come and show me love. Baby, come and show me love. Because you're gonna be a heartbreaker. You're such a love taker. So just suck me in and you can toss me like a cigarette. 'Cause I just wanna be a bad habit, yeah.
Take a one-way ride, steal us away to find a place we can hide. It wouldn't take much to spear for a night, just to give in to the need and leave it all behind.
'Cause I know that you know that I know that you own me. You told me, now show me, come blow me away. 'Cause I know that you know that I know that you want me. You told me, now show me.